I'm going to check my wires, make sure my wires are securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. The wires aren't cut, frayed, or damaged. They're not repaired by electrical tape. My alternator is belt driven. I'm going to press on my belt, and I shouldn't have any more than a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch play. I'm going to check my water pump. Water pump is securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not broken, it's not damaged, and it's not leaking. It is also belt driven. I'm going to check my belt, make sure I have no more than a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch play.
Oh shit, you gotta check both belts like that. Okay.
I'm going to check my exhaust system, right? This right here is technically your intake.
Yeah.
Okay. This right here is your exhaust. This is your turbo. Okay. So exhaust. I'm gonna check my exhaust system. Make sure it's securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts, not missing any clamps. It's securely mounted. Did I ever say that? Securely mounted. And there's no rust or carbon soot, which would indicate a leak. I'm gonna follow that back to my smokestack. Check my smokestack. Make sure it's securely mounted. It's not missing any nuts or bolts or clamps. It has no damage, no bends, no dents, and it has no rust or carbon soot, which would indicate a leak. I'll follow that around on the other side. I'll check my oil, dipstick. I'm gonna make sure that it is above the refill mark. That's all you have to say about that. I'm gonna check my air compressor. Make sure it's securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not broken, it's not damaged, and it's not leaking. It is gear driven. I'm gonna check my power steering pump. Power steering pump is securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not broken, it's not damaged, it's not leaking. I'm gonna follow my power steering hoses.
You don't have to say that it's gear driven.
I didn't say that? Okay, gear driven, yeah. Follow my hoses. Make sure they are securely mounted. No missing clamps. No missing nuts or bolts. It's not broken, cut, frayed, or damaged, and it's not leaking. I'm gonna follow that to my power steering reservoir. Reservoir is securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts or clamps. It's not broken, it's not damaged, it's not leaking. And I pull my dipstick out and check to make sure that it is above the refill mark. I'm gonna check my steering box. Make sure my steering box is securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not broken, it's not damaged, it's not leaking. I'm gonna check my arm, links, and rod. Make sure they are securely mounted, not missing any nuts, bolts, or pins. And they have all the bushings are present. They're not broken, damaged, bent, or twisted. I'm gonna check my leaf spring hanger. Make sure it's securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not broken, it's not damaged, and it has a good bushing. I'm gonna check my leaf springs, make sure they're not broken, damaged, shifted, and they are securely mounted. I'm gonna check my U-bolts, make sure that they're securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts, and they're not broken or damaged. I'll check my shock absorber, make sure it's securely mounted top and bottom. Make sure it's not missing any nuts or bolts and that the bushings are present and it's not broken, damaged, or leaking. I'm gonna check my brake hose. Make sure my hose is securely mounted, not missing any nuts, bolts, or couplings. It's not cut, frayed, or damaged, and it's not leaking. I'm gonna check my brake chamber. I'll make sure my brake chamber is securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not broken, it's not damaged, it's not leaking. I'm gonna check my slack adjuster and push rod. I'll make sure that those are securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts or pins. They're not bent, broken, or damaged, and they are not leaking. And with my brakes released, I should not be able, and my wheels chocked, I should not be able to pull my slack adjuster and push rod more than 1 inch. Go. We'll go down here to my brake drum. Okay, check my brake drum, make sure it's securely mounted. There's no cracks, there's no dents, and there's no damage. I'm gonna check my brake linings. Make sure my brake linings are securely mounted. They're not missing, they're not damaged, they're not worn dangerously thin, and they're free of contaminants such as oil and grease. I'm gonna check my inner and outer rim, make sure it's securely mounted. There's no repair welds, there's no bends, there's no dents, and it's not damaged. I'll check my tires, my inner, outer, and tread. I'll make sure that it's evenly worn, and at each major groove I'll make sure that it's no less than 4/32 of an inch.
Yes.
There's no abrasions, no bulges, no cuts. I'm gonna check my inflation, which is indicated on my sidewall, and I'm gonna check that with an approved tire gauge at my valve stem. My valve stem is securely mounted, it's not missing, it's not broken, not damaged, and not leaking, and has a good cap. I'm gonna check my lug nuts, make sure all my lug nuts are present, they're securely mounted, there's no missing nuts or bolts.
So we're going to drive. So just keep recording. Yeah.
There's no rust trails or silver threading, which would indicate looseness, and there's no ovaling or cracks, which would indicate over torqued. I'm gonna check my hub seal. I make sure my hub seal is securely mounted, no missing nuts or bolts. It has a good cap, and it's above the refill mark. Cool?
Cool.
All right. I'll shut this. Clear. I'm gonna check all my mirrors. Make sure my mirrors are securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. They're clean, they're not broken, they're not damaged, they're not missing. Next, I'll check my door. Make sure my door opens and closes properly. Make sure it's securely mounted, no missing nuts or bolts. Hinges are present, not missing any nuts or bolts. And that the door has a good seal. It's not cut, frayed, or damaged. Now I would get in. I'm not going to get in, okay, unless you want me to get in.
To do
The end cab? You want me to get in to do the end cab?
Yeah, we can
All
do
right.
that.
That's good.
You don't need to chop the wheel, right?
No, it's all right. I'm not going to start or anything.
The more info, the better.
All right, so as I get in, I'm going to check my seat belt. Make sure my seat belt is securely mounted, it's not cut, frayed, or damaged, and it properly latches and unlatches properly. Then what I'm going to do is perform a safe start, right? Make sure my truck is in neutral. I'm going to depress the clutch. I'll turn on my engine, and then I would start it. Which I'm not going to do that, okay? That way you can hear me and everything. So upon starting my engine, first thing I'm going to watch is my ABS light. I'm going to make sure that my ABS light comes on my dash and also on the back of my trailer. And those should both turn off. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to check my oil pressure and my water temperature gauge, and I'm going to make sure that those rise to proper operating levels. All right. Then I'm going to check all my dash lights. I'm going to make sure that my high beams work. I'm going to make sure that my four-way hazards work. I'm going to make sure that my left turn signal and also my right turn signal indicators on my dash work. I'll follow that over. I'm going to make sure that my heater and defrost work. You actually have to do those, right? And then I'm going to check my windshield. Make sure my windshield is securely mounted. It's not broken, it's not chipped, it's not damaged. It's free of obstructions, it's clean, and it has a good seal. Now I'm going to check my wipers, right? Make sure that my wipers operate. And check that, make sure they're not broken or damaged, they're not bent. Also, I'm going to check my wiper blades, make sure that they are securely mounted, they're not broken, they're not damaged. And I'm also going to check my windshield washer fluid, make sure that it operates and works. Now back to the dash, I'm going to check my battery charge. I'll make sure that, or my voltmeter, check my voltmeter, make sure that it is properly charging. And I'm going to check my horns. I'm going to check my city horn and also my highway horn. Your highway horn will not work unless you have 90 psi built up in your air tanks. You don't need to say that, but that's just for gee whiz. Now I'm going to look and make sure that my air gauges are properly rising. And they'll rise until the governor cuts out, which is at approximately 120 to 140 psi. Once my air tanks are built up, I'm gonna make sure that my wheels are chocked, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get back into the truck, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn off the engine, and then I will turn it back to the battery charge position. And now I'm gonna go into my air brake check, okay? So, well, let me start that over because I just mentioned some of the air brake check. So with my air tanks built up, my wheels chocked, I'm gonna begin my air brake check.
You doing a pre-check right now? Sweet. Alright, where you at?
So now what I'm gonna do, first step on the air brake check. So with my air tanks properly built up, I'm gonna turn off my engine and turn it back to the battery charge position. I'm going to release my parking brake and tractor protection valve, and I'm gonna make sure that my air stabilizes. Once my air stabilizes, I'm gonna fully depress the foot brake, and I'm gonna hold it for 1 minute, and I should not lose more than 4 psi in a combination vehicle while listening for leaks. So then I would depress it and you would actually start the timer, do it for 1 full minute. All right, the minute's done. So now I go into step 2, which is to test my low air warning devices. So I'm gonna begin fanning off the air pressure by rapidly depressing my foot brake. And before my air pressure drops below 60 psi, my low air warning devices, light and or buzzer should come on. And then you start fanning until 60 psi, and then the lights will come in. The buzzer won't work unless the truck is actually starting, so you got to watch for the little red lights above by the air tanks. All right, so that step's done. Step 3, I'm going to continue fanning off the air pressure by rapidly depressing the foot brake. And at approximately 40 psi, my parking brake and tractor protection valve should pop out. And then you're going to depress that until they pop out. Under no circumstances do you touch them or assist them of coming out. Let them do them on their own. If one pops out, you continue fanning until the other one pops out. That's your air brake check right there. Now what you're going to go into is checking your...
And did you mention that it pops out at what psi?
At approximately 40 psi. So now what you do is you go into your parking brake test. So you're going to start up your engine. You're going to let your air pressure build back up. Once your air pressure builds back up to 120, 140 psi, you're ready to go. So what you're going to do is remove the wheel chock. Then you're going to get back in. You're going to push in either or. You can do either or at first. It doesn't make a difference. Me, I'm going to do my truck one, or my trailer one first, so I'll depress my truck one. And then what I'm going to do is put it in a low gear. I'm going to pull forward until I feel a slight tug or resistance, right? So once that's done, then I'm going to pop that one out and push my other one in and do the same thing. Put it in a low gear, pull forward until I feel a slight tug or resistance. Then what I'm going to do is depress both of my brakes, parking brakes. I'm going to put it in a low gear, and I'm going to pull forward at approximately 5 psi, or 5 miles per hour. And with my hands lightly on the steering wheel, I'm going to fully apply my brake, and the truck should not pull to the left or the right. That's it on the end cab. So then we'll get back out.
Sounds good. For instructional purposes only, can we do the checks on... Or no, we'll just do the whole thing. It's all good. I was gonna say let's do it over there or over here on the shade side, but I just rather you go through the whole light.
You want to do it on the shade side, or?
Nah, it's all good with the whole light thing. I like the way you did it last time, and I want to remember it.
Recording or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll go over this one. They're actually doing two.
All right, so now what I'm going to do as I exit my truck, right, is I'm going to check my emergency equipment and make sure that I have a fully charged fire extinguisher. It's securely mounted, right? I'm going to make sure that I have spare fuses, and I'm also going to make sure that I have 3 reflective triangles. That's it on that. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back here. I'm gonna check my catwalk, and I'm also gonna check my steps, right? I'll check my steps, make sure they're securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts, and they're free of obstructions. They're not broken, they're not damaged, they're not missing. Next, I'm gonna check my cross members. Make sure my cross members are securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. They're not damaged, they're not broken, they're not missing. I'm gonna check my drive shaft. Make sure my drive shaft is securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not bent, broken, or damaged. I'm gonna check my U-bolts. Make sure my U-bolts are, U-joints. U-joints are securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. They're not broken, damaged, or missing. Check my fuel tank. Make sure my fuel tank is securely mounted, not missing any nuts, bolts, or clamps. It's not bent, broken, or damaged, and it's not leaking. And it also has a good cap, and it's securely mounted and not leaking. I'm gonna check my service line, my emergency line, and my electrical line. Make sure they're securely mounted to the truck and trailer. Make sure they're not missing, they're not broken, they're not damaged, they're not leaking, and that the electrical connector is not cut, frayed, or damaged, and it's not repaired by tape. I'm gonna check the front of my trailer, make sure that there's no holes, there's no bends, dents, and that all the rivets are present. Okay? I'm gonna check my leaf spring hanger. Make sure it's securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not broken, it's not damaged, and there's a good bushing. I'm gonna check my leaf spring. Make sure my leaf spring is securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. Has a good bushings. It's not bent, broken, damaged, or shifted. I'm gonna check my U-bolts. Make sure my U-bolts are securely mounted, not missing any nuts. They're not bent, broken, or damaged. I'm gonna check my shock absorber. Make sure it is securely mounted, top and bottom. Not missing any nuts or bolts. Has good bushings. It's not bent, broken, or damaged, and it's not leaking. I'm gonna check my airbag. Make sure it's securely mounted, top and bottom. Not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not broken, it's not damaged, it's not cut, it's not frayed, and it's not leaking. Now I'm gonna check my, you can't see them, but I'm gonna check my brakes, right? I'm gonna do the same thing on my brakes. Check my brake line, my hose, right? I can't see it. Let me see if I can see it up here. No. So I'll check my brake hose. Make sure it's securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not missing any clamp or couplings. It's not cut, frayed, damaged, and it's not leaking. I'm gonna check my brake cylinder, air chamber, Make sure it's securely mounted, not missing any nuts, bolts, or clamps. It's not bent, broken, damaged, and it's not leaking. Then I'm gonna check my brake drums. Make sure my drum's securely mounted. I can't see it in there. Yeah.
Oh,
Same as the front.
yeah.
So I'll check the brake drum, make sure it's securely mounted. It's not bent, broken, or damaged. I'm gonna check my linings, make sure my linings are securely mounted, not missing, not bent, broken, or damaged, and is free of contaminants such as oil and grease. I'm gonna check my inner, center, and outer rim. Make sure it's securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not bent, broken, or damaged, and it doesn't have any repair welds, and that they're evenly spaced in the middle. Now I'm gonna check my tires, my inner, my center, and outer tire. I'm gonna check it for abrasions, bulges, or cuts. And I'm gonna check that they are evenly worn. And now I'm going to check every major groove and make sure that there is no less than 2/32 of wear. I'm going to check my inflation, right, on my inner and outer tires, which is indicated on my sidewall at the valve stem with an approved tire gauge, my inner and outer valve stems. There's the outer one, or inner one. I'll make sure they're securely mounted, not broken, not damaged. they're not leaking, and they have good caps. I'm gonna check my lug nuts, make sure my lug nuts are securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. I'm gonna make sure that there is no rust trails or silver threading, which would indicate looseness, or ovaling, or cracks, which would indicate over tightened. I'm gonna check my axle seal, make sure it's securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not leaking and not damaged. I'm gonna check my apron. Oh, excuse me, I'll check the other three as I check this one. I'm gonna check my apron.
Let's do this one from the other side because
All right.
we're baking over here.
Yeah. Alright, I'll check my apron. Make sure it's securely mounted, it's not broken, not damaged, not dented. And I'm going to check to make sure that there is no space in between my apron and fifth wheel. My fifth wheel is securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts, and it's properly lubricated. I'm going to make sure that my fifth wheel is properly attached to my platform. My platform is attached to my frame. Make sure there's no missing nuts or bolts. It's not broken, it's not damaged. I'm gonna make sure my sliding fifth wheel locking pins are in the locked position. I'm also gonna make sure that my lock handle is in the locked position. I'm gonna check my locking jaws on my fifth wheel. I'm gonna make sure that they are securely mounted and they are properly locked around the shank of my kingpin. Check my kingpin, make sure it's not bent, broken, or damaged, and then it's securely mounted. I'm gonna check my pigtail, make sure it's securely mounted. It's not broken, it's not cut, it's not frayed, it's not damaged, and it's not leaking. Am I missing anything there? Nope, that's it now. Alright, I'm gonna check my mud flap. I'll make sure my mud flap is securely mounted, no missing nuts or bolts. I'm gonna make sure my sliding fifth wheel is positioned in such a way that my frame doesn't come in contact with my trailer. Check my floorboards, make sure that they're securely mounted, no holes, no damage. I'm gonna check my cross members, make sure they're securely mounted to the trailer frame, no missing nuts or bolts, and they're not damaged. I'm gonna check my landing gear, make sure it's securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. I'm gonna check my landing gear legs to make sure that they are fully raised. I'm gonna also check my landing gear feet, make sure they're securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. They're not damaged. I'm gonna check my crank handle, which is over on the other side, to make sure that it's properly stowed. I'll follow that back to the rear. Sliding tandem. Make sure that my locking pins are in the locked position. I'm also going to make sure that my locking handle is in the locked position and they're not damaged. I'm going to check my spring hangers, make sure that they're securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. Bushings are present. I'm going to check my torque arms, make sure they're securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts, and the bushings are present. I'm going to check my leaf springs, make sure they're securely mounted, they're not bent, broken, damaged, or shifted. I'm going to check my U-bolts, make sure my U-bolts are securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts, and they're not damaged or broken or missing. And there's no shock absorber on these ones. Alright. Check my air line, my brake lines, make sure they're securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts or couplings. They're secure, or they're not cut, frayed, damaged, or leaking. I'm going to check my brake chamber. I'll make sure it's securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not broken or damaged, and it's not leaking. Check my slack adjusters. I didn't mention that on these tires up here. I'm going to check my slack adjuster. You can do this. If you miss something, you can always go back and say it. I'm going to check my slack adjuster and push rod. Make sure they're securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts or pins. And that with my wheels chocked and my brakes released, I shouldn't be able to pull it more than 1 inch.
You have to say that for all three with
all
sets
three.
of wheels.
Yep,
Right?
all three.
Okay.
All right, and then I'm gonna go into all my brakes again. So, let's do that.
Brake drum.
So I'll check my brake drum, brake lining, make sure they're securely mounted, not missing, they're not broken, damaged, and they're free of contaminants such as oil and grease.
Make sure they're not cracked.
Not cracked, yep. Then I would go into my rims, my tires, evenly worn, again, 230 seconds on the wear. Same as the drive tires up there. Everything's still the same.
Lug nuts.
Lug nuts,
air,
hub seal, cap. Make sure the hub seal or the hubs are above the refill mark on oil. Make sure that you check the inner and outer valve stems for inflation, everything like that. Then you come around to the back. As you come around to the back, you're going to check the mud flat, make sure it's securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not damaged.
You got to say that twice from the front ones and
Yep.
the back ones? Okay.
I'm going to check my door tie. Make sure my door tie is securely mounted, not broken, not damaged, it's not missing. Check my trailer doors. In this case, it's highway doors. I'm going to check it, make sure that they're securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts or hinges. It's got a good seal.
Okay.
Good on that. Now I would go into checking my lights, stuff like that.
So you do that last then,
Yep,
right?
you do that always last. So what I would do now is I would get into the truck, I would turn on my headlights, just low beams, and my four-way flashers, right?
Okay.
And then whenever you come up here to the front, oh, something else I didn't say, whenever I got into the cab, you got to make sure that you mention the mirrors are properly adjusted to you.
Yeah.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check all my lights. I'm going to make sure they're securely mounted, they're not broken, they're not damaged, they're not missing, and they're all clean, right? So now what I would do is I check my clearance lights, amber in color and working. I check my ID lights, amber in color and working. I check my low beams. They are white and they're clear in color and working. I'm gonna check my four-way indicators, amber in color and working. Check my marker lights.
Hold on, let me get that.
That one is marker.
Marker, yep, this is
Marker light.
marker light. Marker light, amber in color and working. You also check it on this side. Then you come down the driver's side. Indicator, four-way, amber in color and working. Clearance light, amber in color and working. Marker light, amber in color and working. Corresponding reflector. I'm gonna check that my red and white reflective tape is securely mounted. It's not broken, it's not damaged, and it's clean. I'm gonna check these. This is an indicator, four-way, red in color and working. Corresponding reflector. Marker light, amber in color and working, corresponding reflector. Indicator, four-way, amber in color and working. Marker light, red in color and working, corresponding reflector. Indicator, four-way, amber or red in color and working. Marker light, red in color and working. ID lights, red in color and working. Some of them could be up on the top also. Okay, so now what you would do is ask the instructor to stay here. You're going to go back into the truck. You're going to turn on your high beams and then your right turn signal. And then you'll come back here. You'll meet the instructor, and then you'll start here. Indicator, right turn signal, red in color and working. Indicator, right turn signal, amber in color and working. Indicator, right turn signal, red in color and working. Indicator, right turn signal, amber in color and working. Indicator, right turn signal, amber in color and working. High beams, clear in color and working. Then you go back, get back into the truck, and you turn on your left turn signal, right? So now you go down the left side. Indicator, left turn signal, amber in color and working. Indicator, left turn signal, amber in color and working.
Same thing for this one, right? Right.
Yeah.
Red color and working.
Red in color and working.
At that point, you don't have to talk about the reflector.
No, because you already mentioned it.
Corresponding reflector too.
So indicator, right, left turn signal, amber in color and working. Indicator, left turn signal, red in color and working. Ask the instructor to wait here to check your trailer and tractor brake lights, right? You have to mention both, or else he's only going to check one, and you're gonna miss points.
Okay.
So check both, please, and then you go back in there. Make sure that your air pressure's built up. If your air pressure's built up, release your brakes, right? And then apply your foot brake then.
Okay.
And at that point, you're done.
Okay. Sweet.
Do you see how much faster that is than
It is.
than what he was
even
going?
though you were still